Hey guys, welcome to MMA News Daily. This might be a name change coming here soon, but the only reason is because it's not really fitting. The name isn't fitting the format in which this channel is kind of. I wanted to do this and just kind of let it go on its own, and I'm going to be making some tweaks here and there. So, but for now, welcome to MMA News Daily. Right, so. We have UFC Fight Night ESPN 12, I think is the number. And we have a hell of a fight card coming up this weekend. Incredible fight card, actually. And we're going to get to some picks. We're not going to talk about last week's picks. And that's because I absolutely blew it. I think I was 50%. And I can tell you there's video confirmation of this on another channel. I'm actually very good at picking UFC fights. But for whatever reason, it just seemed like everybody that I fully expected to win lost. So that happens. And another bit of a change that's going to happen is I'm no longer going to be picking prelims except for on pay-per-view fights, because the early prelims, and I'm sure you guys are pretty much aware of this too, a lot of times you're getting people that you know nothing about, right? So like the Max Roskopf, I knew very little about that guy. I did a little bit of digging before I did the broadcast last week, and just didn't have enough information on him, and but at any rate, so on fight nights we'll be doing just main cards, but we will be doing prelims on pay-per-views. Now, first up on the docket here, okay guys, I'm going to show you some video here in a minute, and it's about Mike Perry, and I'm very concerned about him. And let me give you a little bit of a backdrop on me. I don't really want to get into where I'm from exactly, because it is the internet, and it just creates another thing. And I learned my lesson from that from another channel. But Mike Perry is from Flint, Michigan. I am from an extremely similar town to Flint, Michigan. I played travel hockey when I was young, so I know Flint, Michigan very, very well. And where I am from is extremely similar to Flint. Flint's a little smaller than where I'm from, but it's basically the same type of people. I grew up in a very, very low-income area, we'll say. All right. And I know Mike Perry. I don't know him personally, but I know him because I know a dozen people that are just like him. Okay. And I understand the front that he puts on, and I'm not saying he's a fronter, okay, but I understand the persona that he's trying to portray in his life, because that is a survival technique. And the thing that I think that Mike hasn't got through his head yet is that this is the UFC, this is MMA, this is a professional environment. And I don't think that Mike has grasped that yet. You're not walking down Erie Street, okay? It's a tough environment to grow up in. Granted, I grew up in that environment, but I think somebody needs to get a hold of that man and explain some things to him about being a professional fighter. But I digress on that, because what's more important to me is I'm actually getting concerned for him with his decision making. And as a matter of fact, we're going to take a look at a video right now. And I pulled this off of Ariel's thing. You know, is it me, or is there... I can't stand Ariel Helwani. I can't stand him. He's a bottom feeder. And he always wants to sensationalize every single little thing. You know, and let me just say this real quick, and we'll get to back to the Mike Perry stuff. But, you know, he went on about the whole Max Rofkop thing, and saying how infuriated he was. He didn't know anything about it before he starts spouting off about his disdain for cornermen not calling a fight. You know, he knew nothing about Max. He knew nothing about his coach. He doesn't know anything about their relationship. He doesn't know if maybe Max does this in every single fight camp that he's had. He knows nothing, yet he's going to use his platform to try to get Max's coach in trouble, to put him up before the board of Las Vegas Athletic Commission. I mean, he was pushing for that. And he knew nothing. Ariel Helwani, shut your mouth. Man. I'm sorry about that. It's just infuriating to me that he just constantly uses his platform for negative things. There's a reason why people love Chael. Okay, Ariel, there you go. Okay, so first up, I'm gonna show you some video of him talking about fans and his feelings about fans. Check it out.
Like, you can be a fan and a viewer that wants to watch to see me win, you know what I mean? And I appreciate it if you want those things, but there's literally nothing that I gain from you wanting me to win. You're not doing anything for me. I don't need you. It's Platinum Martial Arts. It's always been Platinum Martial Arts. I am the co-creator. What does that mean? I'm the main creator of this. I guess my dad and mom made me, and that's. I ain't taking no pictures with you bums. I don't trust none of y'all. Y'all can stay away from me. Keep my name out of your mouth. If you call my name out, you can go f yourself. I don't want no fans. I don't want no friends. It's just me by myself, and my girl got my back. So, and she ain't gotta do nothing. She ain't gonna have to lift a finger.
Okay, so I mean, there you go. He's taking money out of his pocket. He said he doesn't need them. Yeah, you do, Mike. You do. You need fans. No matter my feelings on Conor McGregor, the fact is that there's a reason why he is a multi-millionaire. I don't believe he has as much money as he tries to portray that he does, but he has a tremendous amount of money. And why is that? Because he is a serious draw. What does draw mean? Draw means fans. Draw means fans coming to the arena, or in this case, only buying pay-per-views, buying your gear. These are, and not to mention, endorsements and things of this nature. The list goes on, and it's endless, and it all revolves around fans. Mike Perry, come on, bro. It all revolves around fans. Think, man. Okay, so next we're going to talk about, I'm going to show you a little video about his girlfriend. Listen, we've all been in love, man. We've all been there. I watched your girlfriend. You know what? I don't have video right now, but I'm going to see if I can find some. If I do, I'm going to put it up right now. We've all been there, okay? But you see her holding mitts. You about knocked her over. She looks like she's 4 foot nothing. Weighs a buck nothing. And that's who's holding mitts for you? In the neighborhood I used to live in, they had a pretty well-established boxing academy. All right, it was right in my neighborhood, and they put out a few professional fighters out of that gym. And as a matter of fact, one of them ended up beating Buster Douglas the fight after he fought Mike Tyson. So after he beat Mike Tyson, but the reason you train, and I know he talks about the fact that he did roll with some people doing BJJ and all of that stuff, but 1-2 slip, 1-2 slip, 2-3 slip. Those are, I play guitar. Let me give you an example. I play guitar. I have to practice my scales. If I don't practice my scales every day, I'm not going to be able to perform when I need to. Okay? It's just that simple. I've been playing for 35 years. If I take 2 weeks off, I'm going to be very, very rusty. You got to train, man, and you got to have training partners, and you have to have coaches. Get that through your head, Mike Perry. And then, I'm going to show you this one little quick clip here, and it's just him. Apparently Joe Silva, and if you don't know who Joe Silva is the the primary matchmaker for the UFC. Chael gave a great background. Chael Sonnen gave a great background on Joe Silva and how he got his job. And if you don't subscribe to Chael's channel, you should check that out. If nothing else, for that story alone, it's gold. Gives a great backdrop on Joe Silva. And Joe Silva is he's a very no-nonsense kind of guy. He can make and break a fighter. He's done it before many, many times. He can make and break a fighter. And I want you to watch this video.
They need to relax, calling me 3 damn times. Would y'all relax? I'm having a conversation here. I'm gonna be out there in a second. I'll call you right back. I saw the first one. Anyways.
Probably not the smartest thing in the world. Probably not the smartest thing in the world to do. He's going to see that video, Mike. And, whether you like Joe Silva or not, he is who he is, and he has the power that he has. Somebody needs to get a hold of him. And by the way, just off topic, but Sugar Sean O'Malley too. Get an agent, man. You need a manager. Quit saying you don't need one because you had one bad one. You are going to leave a lot of money on the table, brother. A lot of money. If all else fails, go to Paradigm. That's who has Connor and other people. Used to have Tony Ferguson. What's his name? I forget his name. The guy that runs Paradigm Sports, but he's basically Conor McGregor's agent. And he can rest assured that he was a big part of that process. So anyway, let's get on to the picks, and we'll be right back. Okay, so I had to put my glasses on for this one. So we have Sean Woodson versus Julian Erosa. We have a 4-inch reach advantage by Sean Woodson. And, truth be told, I don't know a whole lot about either one of these fighters. But I've done a little bit of digging. And, I'm looking at odds makers, and also looking into their fight history and things of that nature. And one thing that I found is that Sean Woodson, he is a bit of a striker, and but he's only fought in the Contender Series, and I did watch that fight. It was a second round KO, and it was a good one. But it was the Contender Series, so he's only had one other fight against Brockniak, and that was in the Reyes fight night. It was, and he won in a unanimous decision. He is 7-0, two TKOs and a submission. And then he's going up against Julian Erosa, and Julian Erosa is he's been in and out of the UFC. His last fight was in cage sport, so that's a little telling. And the reason being is because in his 3 UFC fights, they were all losses. 2 of them by TKO, and one of them was a unanimous decision loss. So I think it's pretty safe to say that we should probably be putting our money on Sean Woodson. I think it's pretty safe to say that. Let's go with Sean Woodson on this. Okay, so the next fight here is Gian Villante versus Morris Green. I'll be honest with you, this one's going to be quick and easy for you. I'm taking Morris Green in this one. He is a favorite in this. Believe it's a 210, minus 210 favorite in this. So, but Morris Green's a beast, man. And he's got a 4-inch reach advantage. Dude is a monster in the cage. He's 6'7", man, 243 pounds. Now, Gian Villante is weighed in at 205 in his last fight, so he's going to have to put on a lot of weight in this, and all that does is slow you down, especially when you have to do it quickly. So I think this is a no-brainer here. Money's got to go on Morris Green. So, okay, so next we have Brendan Allen versus Kyle Duckhouse. So I remember watching both of these two fight, and the Duckhouse fight, it was in the Contender Series. It went the distance, but I remember at the end of the fight, he had forget who it was. It might be on his thing here. Oh yeah, it was Lombardo. That's who it was. Contender Series, yeah. Lombardo fought all the way through. Duckhouse had him in a rear naked choke, and but he could not sink it in, man. It was a good fight. But then a better fight I remember in the Contender Series was also Brendan Allen, and when he fought Brees. That was I'm sorry, not in the Contender Series. It was a fight night, but I remember that going back and forth, and then finally Brendan Allen started I gotta watch my mouth here on this. Started banging him on his head, and I think that really took Brees out of it a little bit, but Brendan Allen ultimately ended up getting a TKO. So I'm going to go with Brendan Allen on this. And when you see Doghouse, he's kind of got an interesting frame. He's in good shape, but he's kind of has like a Volkov body, So anyway, so that doesn't really mean anything really, but I think in the end, Brendan Allen will get the win. So there you go on that. So listen, I'm not gonna do a fight breakdown on this one as far as reach and TKOs and submissions and all of that stuff, because I think everybody that's gonna watch this video already knows how this plays out one of two ways. Either Mike Perry gets the KO or a TKO, or Mickey Gall gets a submission, right? Now, this is the most heavily favorited fight as far as odds makers go. Everybody has, last time I looked, Perry was a minus 270, I believe, 260, 270 favorite in this fight. And for understandable reasons. Mickey is, he's a really good grappler. He's really good. He's not great yet. Now, this fight could take him to a new level as far as how we perceive his abilities on the ground, but he really hasn't fought a big grappler yet, and this fight is no exception. So what's the strategy here? Mickey Gall has to avoid, because you can rest assured, especially after you saw the video earlier, you can see Mike Perry is just amped up. There's no doubt in my mind that he's going to come out. When that horn goes, he's going to come out and he's going to start banging. All right? The question is can Mickey Gall survive that in that first round? If Mickey Gall can get past the first round, now I'm going to give you a prediction. But if Mickey Gall can survive that first round, he certainly has a much better chance. I don't like his chances. And it's not being a fanboy of Mike Perry in any way, because quite frankly, I think the best thing that could happen to Mike Perry right now is for Mickey Gall, of all people, to beat him. What would be really ideal is for Mickey Gall to knock him out. I think that's really, truly the best thing that could happen to Mike Perry. I just don't think it's going to happen. I cannot see a situation where Mickey Gall can weather that storm. Now if it goes to the third round, hands down, Mickey Gall is going to win this by most likely decision, possible submission. But if it goes 3 rounds, I cannot see a situation where Mike Perry wins. But it's a tall order to ask Mickey Gall to go the first 10 minutes without getting knocked out, because he just hasn't fought a striker like Mike Perry yet. And Mike Perry is an animal. He's got heavy, heavy hands. We've seen this. Okay, this one to me, I won't call it a no-brainer, but I think it's a pretty easy pick. You put your money on Mike Perry. I'm probably going to strike a nerve with a few people on this, but that's okay. Good debate is good debate, regardless of where you stand on it. Let's talk about Dan Hooker a little bit. Let me start out by saying that I won't be surprised if he won this fight. But I will tell you right up front, I am picking Dustin Poirier to win this fight, and here is why. I was never a huge believer in Tony Ferguson becoming champion. And the reason that, and why am I talking about Tony Ferguson? I'll explain why. Because I think Dan Hooker is a different version of Tony Ferguson in this sense. Two completely different animals, fighting styles. It's not what I mean. But Tony Ferguson just could never seem to get over certain humps. And yes, a lot of these things were not his fault. I get that. But sometimes the cards are what they are. Sometimes all you have is an ace high hand. And that's just the way life is sometimes. It's not fair. He trains like an animal. He's a really good striker, those elbows and all of that stuff. But I just cannot ever foresee, and I've said this all along, this is well before the fight with Gaethje and everybody else. But I knew in my heart of hearts that when Tony Ferguson had to show up to fight the elite of the elite, that he would fall short. I knew it. There was just something in my bones that just kept saying, nope, I'm not a buyer. I'm a seller on this all day. I feel the same way about Dan Hooker. And let's talk about one other person first too, which is Paul Felder. I'm going to say something that might rub some people the wrong way, but I'm going on record as saying that I think that Paul Felder is the most overrated fighter in the UFC. I don't see anything special. I don't see a special attribute about Paul Felder that sticks out to me that says, wow, that guy's a great UFC fighter. Other than toughness. Very tough fighter. He's very tough. But he has no skill set. Nothing, no skill set in the sense that where he can beat the elite of the elite. Okay, that's what I mean by that. I feel that Dan Hooker's win over Paul Felder, and let's not forget that went to a decision, and it was a split decision. I don't agree that it should have been a split decision. It should have been unanimous. However, Dan Hooker barely beat Paul Felder in a decision. Not a buyer. Not a buyer at all. Could I be wrong? Yes. And let me say why I could be wrong. Because I don't know that we have enough of a sample size from Paul Felder. Listen, he beat Gilbert Burns. Fantastic. But he beat Gilbert Burns at 155 before Gilbert Burns moved up to 170. And it was a TKO. We all have seen many times where somebody just gets caught. So that happened, right? And then let's look at his list of people after that. Loses to Edson Barboza. And this is before Edson Barboza moved down to 145. Beats James Vick. James Vick is a wily veteran. He's been around for a long time, and he's a really good fighter. But he is nowhere near the elite of the elite, right? And we know that 155 is, and now 170 and Bantam 135, these are murderer's row of fighters. Murderer's row. So let's think about what we're talking about here when we're comparing James Vick to anybody else in the top 5. All right. Then he fought Al Iaquinta. Other than Iaquinta's courageous performance against Khabib, which I think was a combination of a lot of things, that the only reason it went on as long as it did. I think Khabib was playing with him. I think Khabib wanted to put on a show for people. And I think Khabib wanted to reward Al Iaquinta for stepping in and taking that fight. That's my personal feelings on it. Other than that, Al Iaquinta is a pedestrian fighter. He is. Then, and not only that, Hooker won in a decision again against Al Iaquinta. And then we know he won by a split decision against Paul Felder in the 5-round fight. Not a buyer. Why don't we take a look at some of Dustin Poirier's last fight here? Oh, sorry about that, guys. His last, say, 10 fights. Okay, loses to Khabib, beat Max Holloway, beat Eddie Alvarez, beat Justin Gaethje, beat Anthony Pettis. And then there was the situation with Eddie Alvarez where he couldn't continue. Jim Miller, Michael Johnson, Bobby Green, Joe Duffy, Yancy Medeiros, Conor McGregor, Diego Brandiao, Cub Swanson, Max Holloway. I mean, the list is thick. It's thick. The question isn't who's going to win this fight to me. Dustin Poirier wins this fight. The question for me is, what do you do with Dustin Poirier after he wins? What do you do with him? By the way, I can't see squat up close. I see like an eagle far away. I don't know what the deal is. But what do you do with Dustin Poirier? I don't hear a single person clamoring, even if he wins this fight and Khabib beats Gaethje. I can't imagine people clamoring for a rematch with Khabib. I think that, and I thought about this a lot, actually. And I think the only logical thing to do with Dustin Poirier is to have him fight Tony. I think that's a fight a lot of people would love to see. And you could headline a pay-per-view with it for sure. Or you could double it up with make them a co-main with Khabib and whoever else, Conor. I don't know if we want to see that either, really, but you could really get a lot of mileage out of that. But other than Tony, if Gaethje loses, does anybody want to see that? Maybe. I don't know, man. I don't know what the UFC's going to do with Dustin Poirier. And unfortunately, a lot of this stuff is going to fall back on what the hell is going on with Conor. I wish he would just shit or get off the pot. He says he's retired. I'm not buying it, but at the same time, I don't know who you match him up with. He's a prize fighter at the end of the day, and he's always treated it that way. It's about money to him. And I understand that. I do. I get that. You know, good for him. I'm happy for him. I truly am. But something's got to give with him. And I don't think Dana's got the balls to call him on the carpet on it. That's the bad part here. That's the unfortunate part, is I just don't think Dana is going to put him in his place. So there's going to be point is this. After the Gaethje Khabib fight, providing it works, providing it happens, you know, we don't know what's going on with Khabib and his dad, and you know, it's just hard telling. There's a lot of things in the air, but it's a good problem to have when you have Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje and Dan Hooker and Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov and you know, on and on and on. This is still, no matter who fights who, it's a murderer's row at the end of the day, right? I mean, that's what we want to see, is all of these great fights happen. And so it's a good problem to have, to find out what to do with Dustin after he beats Dan Hooker. We'll see, though. I guess we'll see. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I will talk to you soon. Peace.